continuation of the public hearing and discussion by council vote or other action on second reading. And for this, I will turn to town plan.
As you recall, 5.5.3 was assumed to have been passed in 2006, along with Section 17. And in review of the procedure, it never actually went to final vote, only subsidiary motions. So now it has to come back before us, and this is the original, with the exception of one of the A through F items, which was slopes greater than 20%, which is no longer allowed under state law. So this is what remains, and it makes fairly straightforward sense. We did pass Section 17, so this is the only item left. If anybody actually is interested in this, I have I have some copies.
One in the back.
Customer.
Actually,
Bob, if you could just clarify again, you said that the A through F is where it used to be.
Yeah, there used to be
the
A
reference
through G,
Mhm.
and one of them was the 20% slopes.
Help me, Bob, I thought it was 10% slopes.
No, it was never 10%. It was a question of whether it's 15 or 20, depending on whether you were in the zoning or in the land development subdivision regulations. But it's not allowed. So the A through F is what really counts. Those are the things that are out. The wetlands, the water bodies, the 100-year floodplain areas, the land within the right-of-way of any existing or proposed public or private street, and land within a public or privately held easement in which above or below ground utilities, including but not limited to electrical transmission lines greater than 69 kV, are constructed. That also includes underground gas lines, and then cemeteries.
And this, to be clear, is only for applies to residential.
Yes.
Hey, lady.
You have no minimum lot size for commercial industrial manufacturing.
Bob, it's late, I'm tired, not as tired as our councilor is, but he hasn't slept in
I'm lucky that I'm even upright right now.
Explain the slope of undeveloped, what is the state?
State law says that the towns cannot exclude slope land from development, or from being counted toward the total or being excluded from development itself.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions from the council? This is a continuation of a public hearing, so if anybody, and we may only have one member of the community who'd like to speak. Mr. Rosowski, if you'd like to speak. So I would entertain a motion at this time to close the public hearing. So moved by Councilor Yazbak. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Alves. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So the public hearing is closed. What's the council's pleasure? No action? We want to move on?
Well, let me just say, I've already had to sign 2 administrative subdivisions that had less than the required amount outside wetlands. But they weren't bad, they weren't serious issues. You know, loss of 10,000 or 15,000 square feet out of 65,000 is not a big deal. When you have someone coming in with 10,000 square feet in an REA zone or an RRC zone, then it's going to make a big difference, and people are going to say, how did the town council let this happen?
So we've had a first reading. This is the second reading, at which time we would either accept it and codify it the way it was supposed to be codified before, but never was. don't act on it,
Or deny it.
or deny it.
I would rather see a straight up and down vote, because what happened remember last time you refused to continue, or took no action on the comp plan amendment, which set up a constructive approval situation that we really don't want to get into. So it's always best for town council to make a decision rather than let it go.
Well, then I'll make a motion for passage of this proposed zoning ordinance amendment as presented.
I don't want to second for discussion, but I do have a question, Mr. Clark.
Okay?
Well, then I'll say it for discussion.
Seconded by Mr. Yazbak. Discussion.
Bob, help me with floodplain maps and FEMA maps. What do we look at? Floodplain maps, FEMA maps, both maps? What's the difference?
FEMA puts out the floodplain maps.
So,
So anything that comes from FEMA would be a firm flood insurance rate map, and the zones are very clearly defined on there.
what is it, panel 10, 10C, something?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
well, there's, about a dozen panels that in one way or another touch on North Smithfield, but we have the whole stack. And we, in our zoning, we say for floodplain purposes, remember in 2009, we did an emergency. When I first came here and found out that they were scheduled for May and they had to be done on March 9th, by March 9th, and so we did it as an emergency measure. But we agreed not to allow construction in that zone. What this is doing is saying you can't count that zone, the land within that zone as part of your minimum lot requirement.
Got it, thanks.
Any further questions? We have a motion that's been seconded. We've had discussion. Hearing no further discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes, motion carries. On to item number 10, proposed zoning ordinance amendment, section 5-7, ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations. This is listed as a continuation of public hearing and discussion by council vote or other action on second reading. Mr. Erickson.
Okay, in the first reading, we had no issues other than a request to add the language of an earlier part into, on the last page, section 3 in red, any cost unrecoverable from owner and operator shall be the responsibility of the landowner. And interestingly enough, we've just finished the next Sun project. Well, we haven't actually finished it, we're still working with the wetlands. But it's ready for final approval when Redham completes their report. And they came in for a special use permit, and they were very cooperative because we showed them this ordinance, and they essentially did what was best practice. And then we're talking to somebody else on a preliminary basis for a very large installation of 2.5 to 3 megawatts. And the first concept that we discussed was the unrecoverable from the landowner, and their impression was, wow, I mean, you've got this thing bonded already, and you're going to put that on the landowner, that's going to be a deal breaker. So the question is, if you don't want the projects in town, then leave it in. If you want the projects, it's a good idea to consider how you want to do that, because financial surety would seem to cover that eventuality. It's just that the landowner is a passive party here, and they really don't want to get stuck as essentially co-signer to the project.
Good argument.
That's what I'm here for.
Although putting it in there does, I hear what you're saying, I'm not disagreeing, but the benefit of having it there is that it causes, there's some check and balance there with the landowner, that they're going to want to make sure that they're dealing with a reputable company.
Sure, and you can make the other argument, which I also do as a planner. You can make the other argument that the bonding pretty much insulates the landowner, so they'll just make sure that the whole thing is legit. So we're at about the same place we started.
So if we look at the land development subdivision regulations, what's the current language dealing with bonding or financial surety? Is it AAA rated, do you recall?
Yeah, there's no such thing as AAA
Oh,
rated.
excuse me, AA,
It's a
sorry.
double A.
I wish they were AAA.
Yes, but what you have to understand is that these panels would not come under design review. They don't require 20 parking spaces, and they don't have 5,000 square feet of building. So this was kind of a, wow, this is a huge project, but we don't have any jurisdiction over it. So this creates jurisdiction where it might not otherwise exist. And it also means, I think, that we should be coming back and saying, instead of making this a special use permit, where they have to go before the zoning board of review, make it by right, at least in manufacturing. Because when you want to put them on the roof, or whatever, I mean, that stuff should be, you know, a quick turnaround.
Is it your recommendation to remove the red language in item number 3?
No, my recommendation is, you know, that's your decision. I'm just telling you the pluses and minuses. I never try to get emotionally involved in these.
Well, it was a valid point, that's why I said it was a good argument, I can understand that. If the surety, the bond is in place, I can move on without it.
So if the thing goes belly up, these panels are on the private landowner's property.
Yes.
And I would think that, I mean, we wouldn't be insisting that they be removed. If the private landowner wanted to do something different with the property, I suppose it would be his responsibility or her responsibility to have them removed.
And if it's on town land, you're the one who has to pay for
Right.
it. The problem is that the surety bond may, the payments may not, the installments may not be paid on these about 6 months before the company goes belly up. We've seen enough belly up strategy.
Yeah, that's the problem. How do you police the fact that you have the bond in place so you don't have the bond?
It should have been a scheduled bond. Yeah.
Unless you have some kind of requirement that they have to give proof of bonding every year to the town
Yeah.
with a term of at least another year. So that's probably the only way you can get around it.
We've had this discussion before with previous bonds, that there should be some type of schedule of payment.
So I'm perfectly happy leaving the red in, and see if we can make progress on this thing. And we can, in the land development and subdivision regulations, you know, require, in all cases, that, you know, proof of payment of the bonding fees be provided yearly, or, you know, every 6 months.
So but why on this item, if it was installed on private property
Yes.
and the firm went belly up, why would the town have any interest in going onto that private property to remove the installation?
Public safety.
Yeah, that would
Did
be the only
damage,
reason.
you're not gonna want, sharp shards of glass hanging around in some empty lot somewhere.
You could argue that it would become an attractive nuisance. The first time somebody smashed one of the panels, that's sort of the trigger. And when it's bad enough, then the town would be liable.
I tend to think
But-
that would be the responsibility of the private landowner.
Yeah, I agree.
So I only see this as being needed if it's on,
I can go either way.
if it's on public property.
I have a quarter of my pockets in my foot.
I can go either way.
I'm fine with leaving it in there.
Okay.
If it's gonna limit development in a manner that we think it's gonna limit development, then why would you leave it in there? We're not gonna have any in town. So either you wanna have them in town and you can expand some tax base and get some new money in, or you don't wanna have them in town.
So your argument is to take it out?
No, I get that too, but the point is, if someone does not pay their bond in a regular fashion, 6 months before they know they're going belly up, there's no money there to have it removed.
I almost prefer, if we're gonna take it out, take out whole number 3, the entire number 3. I just don't see any need for the town to go on someone's property and remove it.
Well, the only argument there would be that even if their bond failed, they would still be required to take it out. But if they were belly up, they'll be in
Well,
receivership.
if we went in and took it out, we'd be placing a lien on the property for the cleanup cost, wouldn't we not?
You could, yeah.
No, we could, we should,
Yeah,
we will.
I agree.
Okay.
Is it appropriate to ask how we're handling that similar situation at a former trash hauler's site in town that has substantial trash left over? I mean, that's private property, and
Yes,
it's a public nuisance.
and we're working with DEM first. We have to go through them first.
Public potentially health nuisance, we have no idea what's going to
The only thing I can say is that this ordinance, without the red, was exactly as it was passed in Boroughville, last August. And I changed one thing that was technically incorrect. It was a reference to buffering where they said shading.
Shane, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that was the only thing I thought they got wrong. But I do think Councilman Zawinski made a good point in 4, just bringing that bond posting language over and repeating it so there's no misunderstanding. So I think the only issue before us is what do you want to do with that red at the end of 3?
Make a motion to remove the red at the end of 3.
Do we have a motion on it?
Well, it's a subsidiary motion from them.
I don't think we took a motion.
It's on the table, isn't it?
No, we didn't take any
This
motion.
one, we got the last one.
Yeah.
You don't have an initial motion.
No motion at
before.
all.
Okay, okay.
That's immediately on the table. So you need to
So
second.
what do you want to do, a motion on the table for this as a second reading, and then we'll amend the motion?
Wait a minute, I just go to public hearing and close it.
No,
We have not closed the public hearing, so at this time I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Council Yazbek, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Council Alves, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
you
Now a
need to
motion
consider.
on the amendment. So I entertain a motion to amend the draft that's before us that removes the red text in item number 3.
That was moved by you.
Moved by Council Yazbek. Did I get that right by just saying 3, because there's a lot of section
Yeah, why
5?
don't you just read it, just for the record?
Yeah.
You want me to- Any cost unrecoverable from the owner or operator shall be the responsibility of the landowner. Is that correct, Mr. Yazbek?
Yeah, that's what I
Yes,
want.
correct. Motion to amend as cited. Seconded by Councilor Zawinski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, and ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Yazbek?
Yes,
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, motion carries, and then now at this time I would entertain a motion to accept the second reading as passage of the ordinance as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Yazbek. Zawinski, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Alves. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, and ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Yazbek?
yes,
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, motion carries. On to old business item
Thank you.
11, discussion by council vote or other action on appointments to boards and commissions. There are 2, Personnel Board and Economic Development Commission. Are there any appointments before I read them?
For Economic Development, Mr. Robert Barrere.
Mr. Robert?
Barrere. Yeah, you want to give him the spelling of his last name. I met with him today. He's got an extensive background in construction and real estate, commercial development. Very, very anxious to get involved. He spoke with the chairperson of EDC and explained that if all was well, tonight he would be on the committee and ready to go.
Could I just have the spelling of his last name?
B-A-R-R-E-R-A.
Barrera. Robert Barrera. So, there is an appointment by the town council, by the town administrator with town council approval. It's a 1 5-year term that expires December 1st, 2016. Is there a motion to approve the town administrator's selection? Moved by Councilor Alves, is there a second? seconded by Councilor Yazbek. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, and ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, motion carries. Is there a nomination for the Personnel Board? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 12, new business. Discussion by council, vote, or other action on consideration of DECA contribution. Mr. Zalinski.
Mr. Flaherty, when you emailed me requesting, someone put this on, it was my pleasure to champion this. I guess since then, we've had some correspondence from the town administrator in regard of using town monies through state rep Newberry. Madam Administrator, you care to explain all this?
Well, yeah, this is something that started when we had a discussion probably a year ago, or early on in your terms, and one of the things that we wanted to find out was in determining different contributions the council was making on behalf of taxpayers to particular groups and organizations. We did get a ruling back then from Representative Newberry that legislation is required if the town council or city council in any city or town in Rhode Island wants to utilize taxpayer dollars for those donations. They have to get legislative approval in advance of doing so. And I believe there are 3 cities, and maybe 2 cities and 1 town right now that are on the books, so, that have received legislative approval for that. So if we want to do that, we're more than welcome to submit, that request to the legislature, even this term, we could have that passed, and then subsequent budgets and whatnot could include those donations that we seek to make on a regular basis.
So, I think that there's a couple of different issues here. One is whether the issue that you've raised is applicable to the budgeting process for fiscal 15, or whether it's applicable to awards in fiscal 14, because we do have an amount currently budgeted in grants and donations of, I believe, $2,500 to be used for items such as this, but with a cap of $500. I think that the other issue is this could be an issue of semantics in terms of talking about a grant or donation, whether you're talking about an individual or a family versus an entire class of people. So for example, this past year we budgeted $240,000 as a contingency for sports. And that could have just been part of the school appropriation. We chose to hold it back. There's also appropriations for, I think, equipment at for the North Smithfield Animal Shelter, which in some cases a town would actually provide that as part of the municipal government. In our case, it's done by a group of volunteers. And so we may be talking about versus, for example, if a family gets burned out of a home and we decide that we want to make an appropriation to that family of, say, $1,000, that, in my mind, would be a donation that wouldn't be permitted. But my sense is, and I may be wrong, I'm open to input, but my sense is that the things that we're talking about are things that might ordinarily be considered part of either municipal government or school department. So we've made an appropriation for the We the People of $3,600. Now, I don't know who the check was made payable to, but if it was made payable to the school, I'm not sure if it was, maybe Brenda, you could tell me who that was payable to.
I think it was payable to We the People.
To We the People.
And sent to
So,
the
I mean, and again, it could be a semantics issue where if the check is payable to the school funds that. It's part of a school appropriation because it's funding a school activity for a class of residents, not singling any one out to say, we want to give you money. That's how I see it. I may be saying it wrong, maybe other people see it differently. So I open it up to discussion.
I don't know how the question was posed to Representative Newberry, but if one were to look on, I'm reading from around General Laws 45-2-3. It's a little verbose, but bear with me. Contains the general powers for which the cities and towns can appropriate money. My review of these powers does not allow for any city or town to take tax levy dollars and appropriate its tax dollars for charitable or social donations to independent nonprofit organizations. I'm not sure. I don't know that this town school system is independent. I don't think it's charitable. I just think it's part of our, and we put money into this. Jim, how do you look at this?
Well, if it's a separate group, I think that it would be prohibited. If it's the school department, it wouldn't be.
But they are, in essence, these students are part of the school system.
Right,
But
but
I-
the DECA is the national and
Yeah.
international.
It should go on the school budget then, shouldn't it? Why should it come out of the town budget? It should go on the school budget that we fund. It shouldn't come out of the town budget.
Except so when we provide an appropriation to the school department,
Yeah.
once it's been
Because
made,
don't use
it can be used for whatever they determine to use it for. So in the case of where we make an appropriation for a particular activity within the school department, it's still going to the school department, or it should go to the school department, but you're shaking your head saying no.
No, it goes to DECA,
Okay.
it really does.
So that students from North Smithfield can attend the DECA conference where it's in Anaheim or San Antonio, wherever it is.
So when we give money like to senior services, because we don't have our own senior center,
There's the list.
then you're saying you can't do that? They're providing a service to us that helps out all the retired people. So you'd rather expand government and spend 5 times the amount to get the same level of service? Is that what we're saying? I mean, that's totally asinine. And maybe I'm just tired, and maybe you're gonna get my real feeling on the matter about
We
this
can
thing.
catch on April 15th.
Too tired about it, yeah.
I mean, that's just ludicrous. I mean, you gotta understand as a government that sometimes other people in other organizations can do things better than you because you just don't have the scope of service to be able to provide. It's as simple as that.
I would agree with you 100%.
And I'm not defending it, but we are getting a service out of that.
We are.
And we're getting a holistic student out of this because now they're actually traveling to participate in DECA competitions. I think we are getting a service out of it. We're investing in our future. This is part of our schools, it is a school
Part of
function.
education.
It's part of education, so it is not an independent or a nonprofit or, these are our children.
To me, it's not singling out an individual.
I don't think it is.
That's to me is a distinction, but.
I think the point was, and I'll get clarification, because if there's any, confusion, we shouldn't let it just lay there. We should
When
find out
when does
more.
DECA need this money? That becomes,
I don't know.
and you know what? I'll make a motion to, make a motion that we approve $500 for DECA. If I get arrested by the state police, so be it. I'll get 3 square meals a day. I'll get the rest I sorely need,
Well,
and exercise,
And before we do that, though,
I think if
And a
I
free
may,
phone.
Mr.
and a free
President,
phone,
one of the things
and
that
healthcare.
the law does is, what you're doing is making decisions for people with their money. And I think that's how it was explained to me.
Well, we make
You know.
decisions every day for people
Right,
with their
I
money.
understand that, but, when it comes to the nonprofits or the specific types of things that you're saying now, why wouldn't the music club get the $500? Why would, well, that's what I'm saying, maybe to Ms. Al's point, those things, if they're school-related, have to be in a separate area, but then the senior services or the RSVP or those types of things are another.
Let's bring it to one really far-out example. You're negotiating, or you're sending $2 million a year to a nonprofit right now. North Smithfield Fire Department.
Mhm.
So what are we gonna do? Not send them money? I mean, the whole
Right,
thing
no,
is crazy.
I understand what you think is crazy, I just think that we need further clarification, because I
But
don't.
you don't need a
Yeah.
clarification. Why don't you just go forward and get the legislation that says we can just do whatever we want to do? And, then we don't have to split hairs as to what's a nonprofit that's supposed to mean this and what's a nonprofit we're not supposed to mean. Because we're going to deal with a number of nonprofits into the future because they obviously can do
Right.
things on a better scale and in a better manner than we can because we don't provide those kinds of services. So we should just, cut to the chase and have some legislation introduced, get a resolution for the next council meeting, have them introduce it so we can continue to fund these things, so we don't have to get into this nonsensical discussion about it.
Okay.
This is stupid.
It all talks about profit and non-profit, these are neither. It's our
When you
schools.
look at those cities and towns that have this legislation in place, they have specific, now I don't know why, but they have very specific groups that they have been authorized to provide the money for. I don't know the rationale. but
It's
I
towns
would
of Hopkinton, West Greenwich, Richmond, and Charlestown to appropriate money for a wide variety of public health, welfare, recreation, and other social
Yeah,
purposes.
because they're probably doing like we are with senior services, the perfect example.
yeah.
Can I make a motion that we approve the five, I'm sorry.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Mr.
How's that?
Polinsky to approve the $500 appropriation to DECA, seconded by Councilor Yazbak. Is there any further discussion?
Did we get something requesting? money
Yes.
from
Yes,
You got it already?
yes,
Can we have it?
that? Yeah, I haven't seen it.
sure.
That
Yep. I will forward it to you. Motion's been made, it's been seconded. We've had discussion, any final discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, motion carries. On to item number 13, executive session under Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A2. Sessions pertaining to bargaining, collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation. This is listed for settlement with National Marker regarding sewer rebate. And is there a motion to go into executive session? Moved by Councilor Alves, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Zalinski. Is there any further discussion? I ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Zalinski? Mr. Flaherty?
Yes. So